And welcome back, everybody, to the Podcaster Nation. That's right. I said welcome back because I know you were just listening to our stuff and you loved it so much you came back for more. That's a brilliant move, folks. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Because we have a lot more for you. Now, why do we have a lot more for you? Because this is the podcast that's about podcasters, it's for podcasters, and it's done by podcasters. And our guest today is, wait for it, a podcaster. Man, you guys figured it out. You cracked the code. You are brilliant. All right, way to come over. I appreciate you folks being here. This is the place where we all raise each other up, and this is the place where the rising tide raises all ships. So let's get sailing and meet our guest for today. She is a speaker, a podcaster, a high performance coach. She has done a TEDx talk. She has two podcasts going right now. And she's also learned NLP and hypnotherapy, which I can't even say, let alone explain. So I'm going to let her do it. And she's done it all while fighting a whole bunch of different types of adversity, which I'm going to let her tell you about too. She's got quite the story. She's been through quite the journey. Please welcome to the podcast, Teri Holland. Teri, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me here.
I love that you're here today. I really enjoyed your TEDx talk. I want to make sure I say that right off the top.
Thank
You
you.
did a great job with that. You really did.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah. That now have you done a bunch of those or was there just the one? I mean, I only got to see one,
Just
so
just the one TEDx. I've done a
just
lot
the
of
one.
speaking, but just the one TEDx.
Congrats on that. Absolutely
Thank you.
fantastic. We have a lot to unpack and kind of get into. So before we do that, let me just kind of throw you the ball and say, hey, tell everybody who is Teri Holland? What are you about? What's your story?
That's that is a big question. So,
It sure is. Take it
well,
wherever you want to go.
all right, sounds good. Well, I'll start here. When I was a little girl growing up, my nickname was Mouse because I was so shy. I was so quiet that my parents had friends who had never heard me speak. If we were out at a party or a gathering, if I needed something, I'd be whispering to my mom or my dad because I didn't want anyone else to hear my voice. And every parent teacher conference at school went the same way. Teri's a great student to have in class, but she needs to learn to speak up more. And I don't know if anyone's ever told you to be exactly what you're not, but no one could tell me how do I use my voice? How do I speak up? I was so afraid of getting things wrong or saying the wrong thing. I was the kid who in class, if we had to read out loud, I'd be counting the paragraphs until it was my turn so I could rehearse it in my head. And then I would stand up to read my paragraph and my heart would be pounding. I could hear it in my ears. I could feel my cheeks turning red. And I was terrified of my voice. And I don't know why. People always ask why. I have no good reason. That's just how I came into the world. I was very shy and afraid to speak. And so a question I'm often asked is, well, and how are you a podcaster and a speaker today?
Sure.
Well, it's that's been my life's journey. So I started out as this shy little mouse. And then in the third grade, something magical happened. I was given the solo line in a Christmas concert. And this little mouse stepped up into the spotlight to the mic, and I delivered my line. And it wasn't just any line, I got the punchline of a joke. And in that moment, saying my line, hearing the audience laugh, I realized that there's power to our voices. And I felt, I just remember thinking in my little mind, I need to do this again. I want more of this. And so I found safety on stage. And that seems backwards to a lot of people. Most people are afraid to speak on stage and they feel comfortable speaking in their day to day life. I was the opposite. If you put me on stage and you gave me lines to read and you told me where to stand and what to do, then I could fill in the gaps with my imagination and I could play pretend. But off stage, I was still this shy, quiet little mouse. So I found being on stage was very safe for me. And I decided I was going to be an actor. And from that point on, that's all I wanted to do with my life was be an actor and be on stage. And so I did it. As a kid, I was in theater classes all the time. When I got older, I went to a professional theater training program, and I would still get the same feedback from my teachers though. They would say, "Teri, you're so on stage, you light up and you come to life. And then as soon as you're off stage, it's like you disappear. I don't understand it." And I'd say, "I don't I don't understand it either. This is just who I am." But I always looked at those people who were very confident speakers and people who could walk into a room and just demand attention and just had this presence about them. And I wanted to be like that, but I didn't know how. And no one was ever giving me a playbook for how to do this. And then one day, by a whole set of life circumstances, I found myself in an NLP training, neuro linguistic programming. And finally, someone gave me a playbook for how to be confident, how to communicate, how to use my voice. And from there, the podcast came out. Actually, I started the podcast just before the training, but the podcast came along and gave me a whole new sense of purpose and growth. I started doing professional speaking, and my entire life shifted. And now I'm doing what I do today. But I started out as a shy little mouse who was afraid to speak.
It's an amazing story. It really is. Especially
Thanks.
going from mouse to where you are now to actor to podcaster and speaker. Do you remember the line?
Yeah, it was, and clean your plate. It was a song about Christmas dinner. And I got to say, and clean your plate.
And that changed it for you.
Changed my life.
That is so amazing. I love that. It is so different. I've done a lot of speaking too, and it is so different when you're on a stage
Mm-hmm.
and you have an idea of what you're trying to say and you have a little more guidance about where you're going, as opposed to just um, sort of getting along in regular personal life where you don't know what the next comment's going to be and you don't know the interaction. And for me, when I first started, I almost felt a little more like I was actually being judged more in the personal interaction because the people knew me. Was that something that you encountered at all? And if so, what was the, or if not, what was the difference between stage and personal for you? I'm curious.
Yeah, I would say there was definitely that fear of judgment. That was a big one for me. Um, it was really, you know, always it always comes back to for me, I was afraid of making a mistake, of saying the wrong thing or looking like I was stupid or I didn't know something. And so I would get so caught up in trying to get it right or say the wrong thing or say the right thing and do the right thing that I would just do nothing. I would just be paralyzed by it.
Wow. With all the training that you've
Yeah.
done, especially with hypnotherapy and the neurolinguistic programming, have you been able to kind of isolate maybe why you felt that way? I mean, were you, like punished as a child or something for saying the wrong thing, or, did that just, manifest? What I just wonder if you've been able to make progress through that one particular thing.
Yeah, I have. And it's a little bit out there. It's so I was never punished as a child for speaking. My parents were lovely, caring, wonderful people. Um, but it's a little out there if you're okay with that.
I'm okay with anything.
Okay,
I
cool.
asked you the question.
All right. All right. So I use one of the techniques that I use. It's a very advanced form of NLP and involves a bit of hypnotherapy as well. It's called timeline therapy.
Okay.
And with timeline therapy, we can go back to the root cause of any limiting decision you've made in your life, the root cause of a negative emotion that maybe you've been holding on to for too long. And we can go back to that moment and disconnect it in the past and give you a new way forward. So I did timeline therapy on this very thing because I could never understand it. Why did I have such a fear of speaking up? And the moment that I went back to, and this is guided by my unconscious mind, the moment I went back to was as a baby. I had had a really bad reaction to a vaccine where my mom came to check on me that night and I was turning blue, barely breathing. They rushed me to the hospital. I had a fever of, it was just over 104 degrees. And the story, from what I've been told, is they put me in a bucket of ice to bring my temperature down quickly. And they performed a spinal tap to make sure there was no brain damage.
Oh,
And, the way my mom tells that story is that she was in the waiting room down the hallway and could hear the screams from the spinal tap from all the way
wow.
down the hall. So I've always known that story that happened. I never made the connection though. And using timeline therapy, when I went back to, okay, when did I make this decision that it was scary to use my voice or that I couldn't use my voice? Took me back to that moment where consciously I didn't remember it, but unconsciously there was a memory there. And the memory was of being on that table screaming and not have, and they didn't stop because they couldn't stop. They were saving my life. And I can understand that. But as a baby on a table screaming, and the pain's not stopping and the voice doesn't seem to matter. That's what shut my voice down.
That's amazing.
And so it warned you, it was a little bit out there, but
Wow.
that was the moment I went back to.
That is so amazing. I mean, it's just as amazing you've been able to, find that healing through
Mhm.
NLP and hypnotherapy.
Yeah.
My goodness. Okay, sometimes you got to be careful what you ask for in these interviews, but I mean, that's
Right.
a great story, and
Thanks.
and it has a fantastic ending. You're on stage now,
Yeah.
so the mouse can now speak. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
for you,
Absolutely.
man. My
Thanks.
goodness. Okay, well, hey, I'm dying to know how all of this turns into podcasting. I mean,
Yeah.
certainly if there's steps in there, hey, enlighten us. How did you get into, I'm gonna, not only use my voice, I'm gonna talk to, I don't know, the whole world on a podcast?
Sorry, you just cut out there for a second. So I just missed
Oh, sorry. Yeah. How did you
the first
go
part.
from, being the mouse and not wanting to use your voice to, I'm going to talk to what could be the whole world on a
Yeah.
podcast? So I'm
Yeah.
just curious how that all happened.
Well, there were some steps in between. So I hadn't done NLP or hypnotherapy yet. I was at the time I was working as a personal trainer and sports nutritionist. I'd gone from theater that led me into personal training as a way to support myself as an actor, and I loved personal training. I thought I would do that for the rest of my life, and then I burnt out very badly. Now, a lot of people, when they talk about burnout, they talk about they burnt out because they didn't like their career, they didn't like their job. I loved it too much, so I was working 14-hour days, sometimes more, sometimes 6 days a week, and always justifying it because I thought, well, I love what I do. So if I can keep doing this, I'm going to keep doing it. And I was trading time for money. So if I wanted to make more money, I had to find more hours in the day to train more clients. And I always justified it because I loved it so much. But another piece of my story is that I have an autoimmune condition, ulcerative colitis. And I had been I always say ignoring it, but you can't really ignore it. It was very symptomatic. It was very present in my life, but I wasn't taking it seriously enough. And so over time, with overworking, and I was also overtraining myself, I was in fitness competitions. So I was overtraining, over dieting, overworking, and had an autoimmune condition. And I started noticing new symptoms coming up. So I'd go to my doctor probably on a monthly basis, and I would say, well, my hair is falling out now. uh, I'm gaining weight and I don't understand why. There's no reason for it. And all these things started happening. I'm tired all the time. Some mornings I can't get out of bed. Something else is wrong. And she kept saying, Teri, you have an autoimmune condition and you can't work the way you think you can work. You need to slow down. I didn't like that answer. So I kept pushing through. And then I'd keep going to her with something new. And she kept giving me the same information until one day after some blood work came back, she said, Teri, your adrenal system is on the verge of failing. So now it's not slowing down. You need to stop doing what you're doing. And, or she said the alternative is I'd end up in the hospital with adrenal failure. So she said, we negotiated a little bit. I was allowed to work 2 mornings a week for 3 hours on each of those days. And that was it. So I wasn't allowed to work anymore. I wasn't allowed to work out for a long period of time while my body recovered. I wasn't allowed to be in any sort of calorie deficit or dieting. So very quickly, and so in that moment, I lost my career, I lost my identity, I lost my sense of purpose, and I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. So one day I went to this event. It was a multi-day, 3-day multi-speaker event for business owners. I didn't have a business anymore, but I wanted to go and be inspired. And the first speaker on the first day was a man named Sam Crawley, podcaster, and he talked about podcasting. And something inside of me lit up that this was something I could do, especially while I was still healing and recovering from this burnout. I could sit at a mic and I could talk to my computer, and I thought this sounds kind of fun. This sounds like something I've been looking for. And I was ready to leave that event right after he was done speaking. I wanted to go home. I wanted to get started. And on the way home, I stopped at London Drugs. I don't know if you have London Drugs there, but it's like a drugstore that sells pretty much everything, including electronics and microphones. And I stopped there. I picked up a $60 mic. I went home and I started. And my podcast was live 48 hours later on iTunes. Um, I started it very, very quickly. And and I was able to start it quickly because I had no fear of it, because I didn't think anyone would listen. I thought maybe some of my personal training clients might be interested in hearing what I'm up to or what I'm doing. Maybe my mom, if she could ever find the podcast app on her phone, she might give it a listen once in a while. But for me, it was just a form of self-expression. I could share what I was going through. I could share my personal growth journey and what I was working towards and how I was working on improving my mindset through this whole life transition. And that was it. I didn't think anyone would actually listen. And if I did think they would listen, I probably never would have started it. I probably would have talked myself out of it.
Wow. I mean, no judgment and right, because you don't think anyone's going to listen to you. That's incredibly
Yeah.
honest. That's incredibly
Thanks.
honest. That's I applaud you for that. Um,
Thank you.
okay, so were you doing it just for the therapy of doing it, to like just feel a
Yeah.
little bit better about things? Is that what it was?
Yeah, just to feel a little bit better, to, you know, document what I was going through and my own journey, and just something creative to keep me busy.
So when you started your first podcast, that was success in mind?
Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
that's success in mind, motivation, and inspiration for entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Okay. So
Yeah.
this wasn't like a fitness thing or anything about acting or anything like that.
Oh.
What made you want to choose that subject matter and talk to those folks right out of the gate?
Well, it was at first it wasn't for entrepreneurs. I started in the self-improvement section. And actually, it wasn't even success in mind. At the time, it was the empowered life. And I've
Oh,
gone through a
okay.
few rebrands. So it went from the empowered life to the Teri Holland show and then to success in mind. And through the process of doing it, I started becoming more and more clear of who I wanted to speak to and who I wanted to help. And so it got more narrow, more niched, and now it's specifically for entrepreneurs. But it started as more general, just self-improvement. As I was going through my own journey, I wanted to share what I was learning and what I was doing.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah,
So I know you've had some solo episodes on there.
Mhm.
You do interviews as well,
I do. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I started as a solo show.
Hmm.
So I didn't even have an interview until about 3 years in was my first interview. And then I would do them sporadically. Now I do interviews more regularly, usually alternating between a solo show and an interview episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was mainly a solo show for quite a while.
Interesting. All right.
Yeah.
What made you want to start bringing interviews on?
I got bored. I
Another
started to
very
get
honest
bored of
answer.
talking by myself in my little office here, and thought, if I'm getting bored, my audience is probably getting bored of listening to me week after week and just my voice. So I got curious about what other people had to say and wanted to bring in experts who could complement what I was talking about, but maybe have a different point of view or a different expertise that can add to the discussion.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
I can appreciate that. So, I noticed when I was looking at your podcast that you had both. I did not look all the way back to the very beginning, so that's on me. But
Oh, no.
yeah, it seems like you have a good mix now. Does
Thanks.
it feel
Thank
comfortable the
you.
way you're doing it today?
It does. Yeah. It feels good for now. I mean, I've been through so many changes with the podcast and rebrands, and I've changed my style many times. So I don't know if this is how the show will always be, but it's working right now.
I love that you're exercising the freedom, however, to just do what you feel you need to do with your show. I
Thank
think
you.
that's a big message to put out to podcasters. And I say this once in a while when I encounter folks like you who are just unafraid to go ahead and just make the change. You're not
Yeah.
stuck. It's your show. There's no rules.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah.
And I think so many people, because I coach a lot of podcasters now and I train podcasters, and so many of them get stuck in their heads that I have to get the right cover art and it has to be perfect right now and I need the right name. No, you just need a name and you need cover art and you need a show description, and all of it can change. And I think it should change because we change.
Right.
So if, and I've been doing this show for over 10 years now. If it was still the same show it was 10 years ago, I don't think I'd have an audience anymore. I think they would outgrow me pretty quickly. So I think
Right.
it's important that we keep it flexible and that we understand this is a living, breathing thing that's going to morph into something new and allow it that space to do that.
That's such an accomplishment to have been doing this for 10 years. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
That's really amazing. Now you started a second podcast,
Yeah.
which has a, somewhat entertaining name to it, of course.
Yeah.
Um, and so at what point and for what reason, I mean, I kind of already know, but tell everybody else. Um, why, when and why you started What's the Poop?
Yeah.
Thriving with ulcerative colitis.
Yeah. So uh, I wanted to talk about ulcerative colitis. I was diagnosed when I was 12 years old. I've lived with it for over 3 decades now. Um, and I've been through everything with it. I'm not afraid to talk about it. It's not a glamorous disease. It's not one that many people talk on. And I thought, well, I'm kind of over I'm over it. I'm not shy about it. I can talk about poop. I can talk about anything to do with this disease. And so I thought, well, why not create something and use my voice and my message and my platform to share this with other people who are maybe newly diagnosed, or maybe they've been with it for a while, but they don't talk about it, or they don't have anyone who understands what they're going through, and give them a space where they feel heard and seen. And we can have some laughs about it too. Because what's the point? What's the point of having a chronic illness if you can't laugh about it once in a while, right? So I try to keep it light and humorous, but also adding value and giving tips and things I've learned throughout my lifetime with it. Um, and then, so that's the one reason. The other reason is because, as I mentioned, I am coaching and training podcasters. But I started Success in Mind so long ago that I don't know that the way I started it still works today. And so I wanted to test things and say, if I was launching a podcast today, could I have the same success with it? And so I also use that as an experimenting ground where I try different things with SEO and I try marketing it differently. In fact, I don't market the show at all. That's one thing. I don't share it on my social media. I don't send it to my email list. It only exists in the podcast platforms. And I focus on really targeted SEO, and it's been going really well and growing just from that. So, that's why I wanted to share this part of my life and also test some theories about podcasting.
That's, I love that. That's such a great answer. You wanted to get back into
Thanks.
the field too and like test out your own stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so the business aspect of what you do as an entrepreneur is, of course, coaching. Are
Yeah.
there other aspects to that, or is that primarily the vehicle for you?
That's primarily the vehicles is coaching, group coaching, one-on-one coaching, and then workshops and speaking. That's pretty much that is the business.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay.
Yeah.
When you're speaking, you hit a third topic, in terms of you had success for entrepreneurs. You've got
Mhm.
the ulcerative colitis, talking about that openly and freely. And then
Yeah.
you had, let me see, it was sympathy for others going through trauma that kind of almost seems like a third arm of what you're
Mhm.
working with. Was that just because of an isolated incident, or is that something that you are training through? Does that work with your NLP and your hypnotherapy?
Yeah. So it does. It does work with my NLP and hypnotherapy, and with my coaching practice. It's not the focus of my coaching at all, though. So the TEDx talk came about because my husband has PTSD and he's a police officer. And I found that, going through that with him, I started to realize how much it had affected me. And at first, I was ashamed and I wouldn't even acknowledge how badly it was affecting me because I thought, well, it's not my trauma. I didn't go through it, I didn't experience it. I'm not allowed to have feelings about this. I just need to support him and get him through it. And it wasn't until he went to a residential trauma treatment center for 9 weeks. And when he was out of the house and I was no longer focused on him, all of a sudden I started to realize how much it had affected me. And all these emotions started coming to the surface that had to be dealt with. And that's what led to once we came through all that and we're in a much better place. I started to think this is a talk that should be out there. And I didn't want to shift my business to focus on that because, quite honestly, I don't want to talk about trauma all day with people and be in other people's trauma. That's great for people who can do that. I'd rather help people use their voice and be seen and heard online. I would much rather work in that arena.
Mhm.
But I thought this is an important message for people, and this would be a great TEDx talk. So I did the TEDx with the intention of it living in its own little bubble, just existing online and being just its own thing. But it is starting to bleed into my business. I'm starting to be asked to speak on that for other audiences. And I have had some people come to me specifically for coaching who are the wives of first responders who are going through the same thing. And I do love working with them. So it has opened up another arm of my business. But the intention was just to deliver the talk, to be a resource for people, and so that women like me who are going through the same thing would feel validated and feel like they can get help for what they're going through.
Oh, it's amazing. When we put things out there, they sort of pick up a life of their own.
Hmm.
And so it sounds like that's kind of what happened here.
Yes.
I did this
Yeah.
TEDx talk, and now, oh, here come some things coming from that. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And it was
interesting.
also very healing to give the TEDx talk. I thought it was going to be, I had some hesitations about it where I thought it might be bringing stuff up from the past, it might be re-triggering some trauma. It's actually very healing. So I feel more prepared now to talk about it and to coach people through those kinds of issues than I was before giving the talk. Before giving it, I thought that's an area I never want to go into.
Okay, and knowing that hey, this is an area I don't necessarily want to go into right now, at least not on
Mhm.
purpose, but I do have this message that I want to get out there. There are a lot of different ways
Yeah,
to kind of get the message out there, maybe to do a talk. I mean, you can do a Facebook Live, and put that out there that way, right? You
true.
chose a TEDx talk. I mean,
Yeah.
which is kind of up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was your thinking behind that? Like, hey, this is what I want to accomplish here.
Well, it's a big platform. And so I thought if I'm going to give this talk one time, if it's not going to become a part of my regular speaking repertoire, if I'm not going to put this online and make this part of my brand and message, then it better be on a good platform where it can reach as many people as possible on as broad of a stage as it can be on. And then I can just leave it there and let it live on its own. That was my thinking. That's not what happened. It has bled into everything else. But I thought I may as well go big with it, put it on the biggest stage I can get on, and then it can reach as many people as possible.
Nice. Any idea how many people it's reached now?
Yeah, the last time I looked, it was about 92,000 views.
Wow. I mean,
Yeah.
you really do believe in go big or go home.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if I'm going to do this talk just once, I'm going to do it right.
Exactly.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Love the attitude just in general. So that's
Thanks.
beautiful. That's beautiful. Let me go back to your podcast a little bit.
Oh,
The Success in Mind podcast in particular. This is now with this one. I'm assuming that you promote it. It's part of your business, right?
yeah.
So, what do you do to promote that particular podcast? What's worked? What hasn't? What can you share with our folks?
Yeah. So I promote it on all my social media channels and I do, I'll create video clips of each episode, especially when I have a guest on, and I'll share usually two or three video clips. I'll share some static posts about it and introducing the guest. I'll post into my stories online. I post across all platforms, all major platforms. I'll post it to my website. Um, that's kind of it. I'll send it to my email list. Honestly, though, like when you ask what's worked, I think what works the best, what I have found, and I don't know if this is what you've in your experience as well, but I found what really works is just really targeted SEO using the podcast platforms. And that's what works the best. And being on other people's podcasts also help because podcast listeners are here and they cross pollinating. I find that helps a lot. I don't know that really posting on social media does much, except I think it reminds my existing audience who follows me that there's a new episode.
Hmm,
That's what I found. I don't think it
sure.
helps with growth as much as it just helps with awareness for people who are already there.
Nice. I've heard a
Yeah.
couple different theories on SEO. I wonder if you subscribe to either one of them. One is, when you're doing a podcast, that your podcast should have like your podcast SEO, which is
Mhm.
like what it is for the podcast. Um, like for this one, it's the podcaster nation. So I should be talking about podcasts and podcasters and podcasting and all this other stuff, right?
Yeah.
But by the same token, I've heard people say, well, what they do is they SEO the episode
Mhm.
because they want each episode to kind of live on its own. And then they do get people who like have in common with, the other stuff that will follow the podcast, but they're more worried about promoting the episode. Have you ever considered that? Is that something that you do? Do you subscribe to either thought, or I don't know, am I just making stuff up and I'm out in left field?
So I kind of do a bit of both. Um, so for What the Poop, that's all I do is focus on SEO. And because that topic is so specific and so niched, it's all it's all the show's SEO. It's not based on each topic, but each topic lends itself to it. So I'll make sure that ulcerative colitis appears in almost every single title. I'll make sure that throughout the show notes, I'm using targeted keywords related to that episode, but it's also going to relate to the whole show with success in mind because some of the topics do get a little bit broad. For example, I had someone on the show talking about near-death experiences, which doesn't immediately relate to entrepreneurship. So it's a different topic. We did connect it in that she was talking about how she found her purpose through her near-death experience and how that's turned into her business and changed her business. Um, but I'm still going to use like near-death experience, NDE, in my show notes and so that people who are interested in that will still find it and then hopefully they like the rest of the show and they'll listen and subscribe. So I do a little bit of both, I would say. But I think if you're, when I started in 2015 with success in mind, you could be very broad with your show. You didn't have to be as niched as you are today. So I think I get away with things on that show that I don't know that someone who's just starting or started recently could get away with. So I think if you're starting, if you're in the newer phase of your podcast, to be incredibly focused on the niche you're targeting and make sure that every episode is targeting the keywords related to your overall topic.
Nice. Sounds like great advice. Yeah, I mean, things
Thanks.
have changed quite a bit in the
Yeah.
last 10 years. So, in terms of, I mean, just the vast number of podcasts, at the
Yeah.
amount that you're competing with. So, but SEO has changed so much in the
Yes.
last 10 years as well. So, again, I love that you're out there, sort of staying in the fight and,
Thanks.
learning as you go, down in at the street level, with everybody else. So, that's the only way you find out, what's really going on down there. So that's
Yeah.
really cool. That's really, really cool. In terms of the business model, I know that you've monetized through coaching, and
Yep.
that sort of thing. Have you had a chance to, or have you looked into monetizing either podcast in any other format? Just curious what you've done, what's worked, if you haven't tried it, and where you are.
Yeah. So I don't allow ads on Success in Mind, mainly because the advertisers that have pitched to me were not aligned with my show. For example, Pampers reached out, and I was like, this has nothing to do with entrepreneurship or success mindset. I mean, maybe What the Poop that could be if they want to be on there, but not the right brand to be advertising on my show.
Proof of
So I
concept,
haven't.
though.
Yeah,
Yeah, proof
yeah,
of concept because your SEO worked for whatever
yeah.
marketing person was just trying to find a new prospect.
Just trying to reach. Yeah.
For sure. But
And
yeah,
so I haven't allowed ads on the show. Actually, I did once very early on. I had one ad run. It did not go well. I didn't have a good experience with that. And so I use it. I do put ads on the show, like I'll pre-record ads, but they're always for an affiliate that I have or for one of my programs. I won't
right.
advertise anything external anymore. Um, so I do that. That's worked well for me. And What the Poop, I do plan to monetize with ads because I do think that there are some brands that would partner really well with What the Poop.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah.
Good deal. As you put your podcast together, and you can answer different answers if you want for the two podcasts, because I do recognize they're vastly different in terms of where they are in the algorithm, how long they've been around, what you're doing with them.
Yeah.
Um, y- if you do, how do you utilize AI in what you do?
Yeah. So AI has been incredibly helpful. So I'm using AI with in my editing to help just make it faster. I do a lot of editing on both Riverside and Descript, and I love Descript especially for editing I think it's called Underlord. I always get mixed up if it's Overlord or Underlord. I think it's Underlord.
Okay.
But it's their AI agent that, it just makes it so fast. You can just, with a click of a button, all your long pauses are gone. With another click, you're editing out filler words. So it's very easy that way. So I'm using AI that way. I use AI to help me identify keywords that I should be targeting. It saves me from listening through it, going through the transcript and piecing it together. It speeds up time. So I use AI a lot to help craft my show notes, identify keywords I should be targeting, um, to help me come up with SEO specific show titles or episode titles. And and more recently, I created a GPT. I'm still working on building it the way I want it, but I created a GPT to help edit the show like more granularly. So I'll take my transcript, I put it through there, and it'll identify where I might lose the audience, what I might want to trim out, and it'll get really specific. And it's given me some great feedback that way on what I should be doing differently.
That's great. All right. I love that. Okay. Time for my corny question. So
All
strap
right.
yourself in because here we go.
Okay.
All right.
I'm ready.
What is it about doing your podcast? And again, you can give separate answers if you need to, but what is
Okay.
it about doing your podcast that you love the most? And what is it you do about what is it about doing your podcast that you just absolutely throw it out the window, can't stand, hate the most?
I'm going to start with the second part of that. So, what I hate the most is editing. I still do my own because I think I'm a control freak and I don't want to hand it over to anyone, but I really hate editing. It's tedious, it's boring. I need to psych myself up to sit down and do it. That's what I hate. And that goes for both podcasts. What I love the most is, there's a few things. I love that I get to share my message on a platform that people listen to, which I never thought they would, but they listen to it. And I also love that I get to meet really cool people. So some of the guests I've had on have been just so amazing and inspiring. And to get to have a conversation with these people. And from a completely selfish perspective, I'll invite people on my show who can answer questions I have in business. So if I don't understand something, I find an expert who can come on my show and talk about it, and I get some free advice. My audience gets some great advice. They get to share what they do and speak to my audience. So it's a win-win-win for everyone. And I love that podcasting gives us that ability to have great conversations and learn from amazing people every day.
Great answers. I love it. And you're in good company on the one that you hate. Don't worry. So,
Yeah. So
I say this a lot. If we did it Family Feud style, number one answer on the board, editing.
editing. Yeah.
Always. Ding, ding, ding. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, for sure. I can see what that means to you. It's really, really cool. You can tell that you love what you're doing.
Thank you.
And I'm very impressed with everything that you're putting on and everything you put out there. How long you've been doing this? I mean, you should be commended just for that. I mean,
Thank
holy
you.
cow. As we kind of wrap this up, you've brought a ton of stuff to the show, and I can't thank you enough. But I'm going to go to the well one more time and see if we can get
Sure.
a little more, advice from someone who's been doing this for a decade. So, what is your best piece of advice to podcasters who are out there who are just not quite where you are yet?
So, my best advice is to keep doing it. So many people quit too early. There's some stats out there that most podcasts, when they launch, they don't get past the seventh episode. Many don't go past the third episode. And, you mentioned earlier how there's so many more podcasts out there today than there was 10 years ago. There's over 5 million podcasts out there. Half of them are inactive because of that. They just give up. And I don't think you're going to know if you're good at it and really find your groove until you do 100 episodes. So if you're enjoying it, just keep doing it. And it doesn't matter if you're not getting the downloads you want, or you're not getting ad money right away, or you're not seeing a profit. If you're enjoying it, just keep doing it and it will grow and it'll get better and you'll find your audience, you'll find your groove. Just don't quit too early before you have a chance to get there.
Nice. Fantastic advice. Absolutely fantastic advice.
Thanks.
Um, Teri, thank you so much for everything you brought today. And folks, if you haven't checked out her TEDx talk yet, you've got to. If I can, and I think I can, I'm going to put the link in the show notes for everybody.
Thank you.
Best way to reach Teri Holland.
Best way is probably through my website. It's just teriholland.ca. Teri with one R, one I. Everyone always gets that wrong. But that's probably the best way to find out all the things I'm doing. And I hang out a lot on Instagram. So if you ever want to reach out to me, Instagram is the place to do it. And it's at the Teri Holland.
At the Teri Holland.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. That's all going to be in the show notes for you folks. But hey, if you want to reach her right now because you're that motivated, go for it. Don't wait. Do it now. Call her. Get on this. All right. Reach out. Teri, you're amazing. I love this. And I wish you nothing but continued success. And I'm looking forward to seeing you on another stage someplace,
Thank
if
you.
not another TED Talk somewhere, talking about everything you've done and everything you've learned. Thank you for being on today.
Thanks so much for having me.
That's been great. Folks, another fantastic episode of The Podcaster Nation. The reason we get these powerful podcasters on here is because this is the podcast that's about podcasters, it's for podcasters, and it's done by podcasters. This is the place, folks. We showed it again yet today, where the rising tide truly raises all ships. So keep sailing.